Hello and welcome to the Industry Knowledge Exchange Conclave Auto and Ancillary Forum brought to you by CNBC TV18 in partnership with SAP. At this conclave, we take a deep dive into the defining trends, opportunities, and challenges that will shape the future of the Indian auto component industry and how technology can be a game changer in mapping a robust roadmap for the future. The session will begin with an exclusive fireside chat with Mr. Ashok Minda, followed by a CFO panel discussion on calibrating the throttle of change and a CIO panel discussion on technology as a competitive advantage. Let's begin with our first conversation, the fireside chat on the theme Pillars of Future Growth. Now, the changing paradigm of the automotive industry in India clearly shows technology as one of the key drivers of growth. The industry is being impacted by the rapidly evolving customer needs, the disruptive impact of technology, the dynamic regulatory environment, changing mobility patterns, and global interconnectedness, which are changing the way auto companies are doing business worldwide. The use of emerging technologies has disrupted the industry, and it is now interesting to see how the future looks like for the automotive industry. We're joined by Mr. Ashok Minda, Chairman and Group CEO, Spark Minda. Mr. Minda, thank you so much for joining us. My first question, the role of COVID-19 is accelerating the use of technologies. Give us a sense of how automotive companies like yours have embraced technologies such as AI, machine learning, and cloud solutions.
Thank you. See, what I feel this digital transformation in business before the COVID was steady. However, after COVID-19 have changed the mindset of consumers, and consumers has raised the real value of technology. While working from home, people become more aware of the role and impact of digital technology in our daily uses and daily lives. Easy accessibility, safety and security, etc. They are looking these features in every product and services like healthcare, education, and also in auto sector. Considering the requirement of consumers and our work changed to virtual mode for AI and ML and cloud solution in every sector, include auto sector. Even enterprises are thinking virtual plant tour by using robo, so that we don't need to go to the plant and to see each location of the plant. Auto industries also witnessed a shift in consumer mindset. Industry has started leveraging some major advantages of artificial intelligence being used to develop new technology to reduce number of accidents, collect data from various sensors of the vehicles and use it for driver assistance and so on. Organizations are also leveraging on cloud-based solution to introduce their product faster in the market, shortening the sales cycle, handling customer demand with great speed, and introduce new product only after analyzing huge data on real time. And all the data was earlier used manually. This is what I feel that how this accelerating technology such as artificial intelligence and machine learning after the COVID.
Right. And this has also been a period of disruption, Mr. Minda, for companies like yours, for global automotive companies as well. Probably greater strides towards electrification for cleaner fuels as well taking place. What, according to you, were some of the disruptive trends in the last 2 years in the auto sector and the trends that we will continue to see?
As you know, the data is essential in auto industries like any other sectors. And artificial intelligence and machine learning are blessing for the auto industries, increasing productivity, enhance technology to reduce operational cost. Uh, Employee safety has become an important challenge. Monitoring energy consumption and reduce power cost uh, to improve machine life. This has become very, very important uh, for any manufacturing unit. With Industry 4.0, organization are using IoT, through which data get captured automatically and is analyzed using artificial intelligence and machine learning. Thus identification and improvement area and their correction get implemented in a very faster and speedily manner. This
Right.
is what I think uh, is very important and challenging area for the auto component sector.
Mr. Minda, what are the changes that you have seen in terms of consumer mobility behavior?
There are various changes in consumer behavior. They have become more and more educated. Uh, First, I would say earlier, before the COVID, all the industries were thinking about the shared mobility, but now from shared mobility to personal mobility has changed the mindset. After the COVID-19, the consumer has changed their preference, and they preferred more to use a personal vehicle over a public or a shared transport. The second is increasing penetration of alternative of engine powertrain. Uh, Momentum has picked up to shift from diesel, petrol vehicle to electric vehicle. During financial year 17 to 20, EV recorded a growth rate of 44%, with nearly 1 million units sold in financial year 2020. In the recent survey, it is clearly mentioned that buyers are willing to pay a premium for an electric vehicle. The third one is the data-driven features. uh, Personal passenger cars should be able to understand voice command, and driver can control speakers, light, smartphones, maps, etc., without touching of any of the product in the car.
Right.
Passenger car will also have the human machine interference, like driver safety alert, regional language map, real time data update on parkings, uh, and so on. And consumer would also be able to see the heat map, to see crowd at various places where they wanted to reach uh, during the driving time, and they wanted to also understand if any man-made disaster is going to be happen where they are reaching towards that their destination point. So
Right.
these are the I think consumer behavior uh, is changing, and their expectation is more and more increasing. And we will the vehicle manufacturer as well as the auto component manufacturer is definitely going to have a big challenge, but it is a
Right.
good platform to learn and all that.
Very right, Mr. Minda, because the Indian customer is a very value conscious one. He wants all the features in his vehicle, but at the same time, at the lowest price. But moving on, when we speak about electrification, when we speak about connected cars, autonomous driving, tell us, how are you embracing technologies like AI, machine learning, blockchain, and cloud in your business?
So we at Spark Minda is working for the last 5 6 years, and we have understood 6 year back the requirement of the customer, the requirement of the end user, the government logistically, what they are going to bring. And we have made ourselves ready in terms of connected and shared mobility. We have recently started manufacturing the antennas, telematics, ITS, and connected digital clusters uh, in this category. For the vehicle and passenger safety, two-wheeler ADAS, we have recently done a collaboration with the Israel company for the safety for two-wheeler, airbag wiring harnesses, various sensors we have introduced for vehicle and passenger safety. Then lightweighting is another area which is going to be important for any vehicle manufacturer. That for that we have started our interior plastic division, doing the engine room plastics, which used to be in the different material, center console, motor air vent. These we have introduced for making the vehicle lighter. And vehicle electronification, we have introduced the keyless entry solution, immobilizer, TFT clusters. For the emission, we have introduced powertrain sensors, compressor housing, compressor housing body we have introduced. And definitely, at last, the green mobility is a very, very important area which we have started the battery chargers, DC-DC converters, and so on. So this is from the product side. From the manufacturing side, we are improving OEE with Industry 4.0 initiatives. We are also investing in several IoT projects with overall equipment efficiencies like color shade matching, CNC machine with ERP to reduce downtime, energy monitoring systems. So these are the things from the manufacturing side we are introducing. And we are continuously monitoring the trend and keep updating ourselves for product perspective as well as from the process perspective.
Mr. Minda, currently we are looking at supply chain shortages when it comes to semiconductors. We're also looking at a power crisis. Tell us, haven't all these challenges put together increased the need for greater efficiency in the system? Because it's surely difficult to work with and deliver with these supply chain challenges.
I always feel it is an opportunity rather than it is a problem, because in such a process we know how to make ourselves very flexible. As you very correctly said, the semiconductor shortages, this create more problem or more opportunities than the COVID, because in COVID time we could have planned when to shut down and when to open the plant. But semiconductor situation, we do not know when the customer will have the availability. So we have to open all the time and we have to reduce the cost, and we should go to the more variable system instead of fixed system. So
Right.
I would say, yes, all the things are challenging, and we learn out of this situation, and we will become more fitter to take care of such a situation. And this is bound to come. The new things and new situation is bound to come, and
Right.
to make ourselves ready for that period.
Finally, what is your outlook for the Indian automotive industry? A lot has been changing in India. Even the government is focusing on advanced automotive technologies. The direction is very clear. It's towards electrification. But what is your outlook for the next 10 years?
See, first of all, I think India has a big opportunities and captive requirement, because very huge young population, youth population exists in India, and hence our captive requirement is bound to increase on an ongoing basis. And uh, the expectation of the youth is going to be totally different. Uh, and what I feel, the electric vehicle population in next 7-10 years time is not going to increase more than 15 to 20% of the total population, because the IC engine is also going to increase, and this EV will more penetration will happen in two-wheeler and three-wheeler, and then later on these passenger vehicles. So that is going to happen, and the scheme what government is introducing, I feel it is an opportunity for the component manufacturer how to increase their capacity and how to increase their area where they can increase more production and get the advantage of PLI scheme. So it is a good opportunity. Government is also giving a major focus on the manufacturing area.
All right, we've come to the end of this discussion. Thank you very much, Mr. Minda, for joining us and telling us about your outlook for the Indian automotive industry, the technological disruptions that we're going to see, how companies like yours are embracing digital solutions, and what the auto sector could look like in 5 to 10 years from now. Thank you for watching, and goodbye. Hello and welcome to this special broadcast, Calibrating the Throttle of Change. Now, what is this all about? Traditionally, a CFO used to be the custodian of the budget and protector of critical assets. However, today the new age CFO must capture key performance indicators that will guide the future course of the organization. Like CFOs in every other industry, the automotive financial leaders are also being challenged to increase the value of their companies amid rapid technological change. They need to be fundamentally rethinking the way they evaluate future growth and make financial decisions. The more critical task for them is to have a long term vision to drive consensus around the type of technological investments that are needed to bring returns in the future. Let me introduce our esteemed speakers. Anders Hager is the Executive Vice President and Chief Financial Officer, Volvo Eicher Commercial Vehicles. T.R. Srinivasan, Group CFO, Varroc Engineering. Sunil Bora, Executive Director and Group CFO, Minda Industries. Manish Prasad, Vice President, Metal, Mining, Miscellaneous and Automotive, SAP India. S. Chandramohan, Director and Group President Finance at TAFE. And Jagdeep Oberoi, CFO, Sunbeam Auto. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here on CNBC TV 18 on this special broadcast. But let me begin with Anders now. Anders, a lot has been changing over the last 2 years because of the pandemic and all the supply chain disruptions we've seen as a result of that. Tell us, today, in this age of disruptions in supply chains, disruptions in technology, what is the key role of a CFO in an automotive company?
Yeah, I think it has changed tremendously during the last couple of years, and I think it has even increased during this terrible pandemic thing, because then we needed to speed up digitalization, at least in our company, and we needed to handle things in a different way than we have done in the past. And what I see clearly now, at least in automotive industry, is that these big changes of both technologies, new technologies coming in, but also a new way of doing business from traditional, you can say, capex model where we sell a truck or a car. Now there are so many different business models coming into play, and also new players coming in with a new technology. So the traditional companies that has been quite stable in the truck industry for many years, there are other players coming in. So all of us who are in, you can say, working with this for long, we need to renew and think in new lines, and we need to be very agile and have speed. And I think this is something that every finance person who works in automotive needs to work with, handling the, you can say, the risk and the new scenario, and be very quick in taking decision, and also understand the new technology and where the trends are going. So it's quite extremely exciting period right now, but it's also quite challenging from many perspective, because it's a new game plan out there, a new game
So, Manish, over time, how do you see technology having changed financial planning and corporate reporting for automotive companies?
I think technology have had significant impact in this area. Financial planning today is far more collaborative with real-time reporting, and such real-time financial planning and analysis is also helping our customers reduce their financial forecasting errors. Similarly, if you look at corporate reporting, that has become more seamless, automated for core accounting processes, be it receivables, payables, and even on the asset side, and so on and so forth. Today, it is possible to do soft financial close with real-time consolidation. Let me take you an example from an automotive company where it is critical to enable multi-dimensional reporting so that various KPIs, dimensions on cost, revenue, and profitability are analyzed on a real-time basis. They might have a model or a variant that could be performing well on revenue, but may not be good on profitability. Or when you analyze cost revenue on various dimensions, the root cause of certain symptoms can be deciphered very easily. I think that's where the impact of technology on financial planning and corporate reporting is becoming significant in the context of auto companies. You can probably do accounting on the fly. It is quite simplified, integrated, both for regulatory as well as for statutory purposes, and enables instant profit and loss insights and real-time profit controls. Right, corporate reporting automation can also reduce the number of days to close the annual books anywhere between 40 to 50%.
Mr. Chandramohan, if I can get you in right now, when it comes to farm machinery, farm equipment, what is the key role of a CFO when we're looking at so many disruptions in technology, disruptions in fuels? What are the key expectations from you?
I would put it this way. First of all, thank you for having me in. The role of CFO, whether it is a tractor company or any other automotive company, to me remains the same, except some other perspectives could be different in a tractor company. Fundamentally, what has changed in the past couple of years, while what was hygiene, what was, let us say, strategic earlier is becoming hygiene, and new strategic initiatives are certainly becoming the order of the day in digital space. Let me give a small example. For example, we export to over 80 countries, or more than 80 countries in the country, and across various countries. And today we have, by click of the button, know very clearly the country-wise, the model-wise P&L for any tractor. And therefore, we know what could be the implication if there is some change in exchange rate, which is happening day in and day out in several countries, including Sri Lanka and Turkey, which we deal with. So therefore, that is becoming slowly hygiene. Even the treasury function, I would say, is getting much more automated by way of virtual mapping of the dealers and automation of payments, etc., which was not there maybe a couple or 2 years back. And therefore, the efficiency in fund management has significantly improved in the past, I would say, 1 or 2 years. Of course, by click of the button, we can also get the P&L for any division, any tractor, any model wise at any point of time, including the daily working capital management. But what is becoming a strategic, in my opinion, for example, we spend a lot of money on sales promo. So we have to now use several analytics in order to enable us to understand, whether the schemes are working well, whether the effectivity of, in particular state, what we have done is happening or not, or whether to the extent what we are given to the dealer is working well. So those are all the new initiatives, which in our opinion are certainly beginning to take place. For example, in the pandemic time, we created CRM in the record time of 3 months. And that has helped us tremendously to leapfrog in terms of, I would say, inquiry management till delivery. So a lot of, these type of newer initiatives are certainly beginning to take place in this digital transformation.
Right. Mr. Srinivasan, just to come in, as an industry veteran, how do you think technology adoption impacted the financial functions of a company like yours?
Even though I may have a lot of gray hairs, I hardly qualify to be called an industry veteran because my total experience in automotive is about 4 years when I joined Varroc in 2017. So, but with whatever limited knowledge and experience I have gained in other industries, applied in the auto context, and also seeing how the auto industry is developing. So I can share those experiences with you. What we have seen in the last couple of years, and when we say last couple of years, everybody thinks of the onset of COVID pandemic and the short-term impact it's having on the businesses and the operations, as well as the longer-term implications. Uh, so that was definitely, and it is still to some extent, a challenging period, especially for the finance community and the finance leaders to manage, because it has created a lot of volatility in the business in terms of the visibility of demand and volumes, based on which you can plan your business operations, funds, and everything. So we had to become much more nimble, agile in terms of having to respond to industry developments as they happen, whether it is a second wave, whether it's a potential third wave, and the latest is a semiconductor shortage, which is impacting the volumes in the industry across the globe in a significant way. Uh,
Right.
so to be able to cope with that, so that's a challenge which you have to work very closely, not only with other functions, but also with your customers and vendors and across the supply chain to be able to respond effectively and to ensure continuity of operations. The second thing, the also reality that a lot of us are facing is that a large part of the last 2 years have been spent for most of the teams working from home. So we had to essentially kind of reinvent some of the business processes to be able to work in that context when people are not face to face, physically sitting next to each other. A lot of internal processes we had to digitalize, whether it is a capex approval, whether it is demand planning, supply planning, and related treasury activities, including supplier financing and customer related financing programs and so on. So that has been a focus area to digitalize number of these processes to be able to work effectively across multiple locations and time zones. And the longer run, some of the longer term industry trends which are shaping the industry, like electrification, autonomous mobility, shared mobility, and those trends also had to be taken into account because some of them are coming on much faster than what one would have expected even a couple of years
Right.
back. Yeah, EV vehicles, for example. So what we see today, the picture is very different from what it looked like maybe 6 months back even. So,
Right.
and one had to adapt and be ready to handle those changes to make sure not only that your existing investments are being put to use, but also the future investments you are making is in the right spaces, and they will pay off in the longer run. So these are the challenges, and like I said, you have to be connected throughout the supply chain and the ecosystem to be able to respond effectively.
Manish, how are you supporting automotive companies adopt new practices in financial operations?
I think the automotive companies have a much bigger need of increased collaboration today. These collaborations are not only with customers and vendors, but also various partners depending upon the new business models and processes that they are embracing time and again. Any efficient financial operations would probably need a very strong, robust, underlying, seamless, simplified, harmonized, and collaborative financial processes. I think today collaboration is all about network and extended enterprise collaboration through supplier business networks for things like invoice, disputes, etc. Additionally, the automotive companies need real-time budget and spend tracking for the overall improvement in efficiency and effectiveness of their business operations. I think that's where financial operations are also ensuring improved customer experience, employee experience, and they can reduce the overall account receivables management cost even to the extent of about 10 to 15, 10 to 25%.
Mr. Oberoi, if I can get you in at Sunbeam Auto, tell us how did you increase technology adoption in your company to make sure that revenues are optimized, costs are brought down during this pandemic and the kind of disruptions that we've seen with with semiconductors, production slowdowns as a result. It has been a very challenging time for the auto industry. But when it comes to component manufacturers like Sunbeam Auto, tell us about the kind of decisions that you took to increase digital adoption in order to maximize your revenue and cut costs at the same time.
So thanks. I think there are two aspects to your question. I think one is that in the normal situation when COVID chipped in, obviously nobody had thought about how to manage these things, right? So fortunately, as soon as we got to know that the work from home has to start, we had to do a lot of changes in terms of how we function daily. So in terms of new process to be improved, providing necessary infrastructure to the employees at home, and being a traditional company, obviously it was a change. We were not prepared for such work from homes, both in terms of maturity as well as in terms of infrastructure. So I think within that ambit was providing the infrastructure and also ensuring that the work from home also gives us the necessary protection in terms of the security of data. So I think those aspects, we focused very heavily. And I think our, in terms of the work from home, the biggest issue of data security, I think we started addressing very diligently, which was, giving very regular and, periodic trainings to the employees, in terms of, not to click on a few mails or buttons, and, ensuring that the necessary updates are, updated in the system, both in terms of the entire virus as well as the other associated security features. No sensitive information, for example, to be sent out through personal mails. So I think the real crux of the matter here was that we wanted to ensure that the employee understands that one is that security primarily is the responsibility of the employee rather than the company, and obviously giving them the necessary infrastructure and the training to be able to do to really carry out this. And of course, associated with that, of course, was providing the necessary, VPN systems, and of course, in the inherent of the hearts, we obviously had a zero trust mindset where, we ensured that we also create such procedures, for example, multi-authorizations, then of course, encryptions like, software encryptions, and of course, forcing the update of the the firewalls and activities, which ensured that per se even if the employee inadvertently goes into a wrong mode, we are actually protecting them for really understanding that the data does not go in the wrong place. So I think that was preparedness in terms of providing the necessary work from home facility, ensuring that the the data is properly corrected. I think that's one bit of it. I think the other bit of it, I think in Sunbeam, for example, unlike the other matured companies, my esteemed colleagues in the panel, obviously this company is also coming up after a particular era. So there were a lot of uncertainties that came up per se. And with the COVID coming in, it became far more difficult for us to handle. So the challenges really which we faced in terms of COVID coming in, and also we are trying to do the digitalization, were many. So for example, the resources for you per se are limited, right? It is not that we have endless resources, and we are trying to make best use of whatever we have. So that in the dynamically changing economic scenario, it was very difficult for us to predict the future market. So really, we needed to partner very strongly with the competitive scenario and impact of pricing per se, to ensure that we are able to live up to the expectation of the customer, as well as make some decent buck on it.
Okay.
And within that would come is the optimum utilization of resources, vis-a-vis the various investment requirements in NPD, research development, and then finally we are talking of digital. Everything takes a lot of money, right? Then of course another important aspect here is that, as you may recall, that with the falling automotive market, I think in terms of really 2019, I think we are down almost 35 to 40%, and I think maybe 30% or sorry from 19 to 21. But looking at 22, it's no better, right? We are falling probably more head on, and really driven by the two-wheeler market. And also for us, a bigger challenge is that how do we make decisions in the falling demand scenario, which we cannot influence, right? So
Yeah.
One is the long-term decision, other is the short-term decision. What should you
True.
decide, whether you have to survive today or you have to actually, look at tomorrow. So
Yeah.
within that, rethinking the structure of the finance teams, whether we need to narrow down, bring down, and look at more automations, long-term, short-term decisions. Importantly,
Yeah.
deployment of capital was another important point for us, because this is a low interest rate regime, as you know, right? And going
Right.
forward, I think you never know when it'll start going up, because the consumption pattern has to be pushed up.
Also, Manish, with digitization in finance, how do you see the treasury function evolve?
Look, the need of the hour today is how do we do more predictive, automated, and accurate forecasting. I think every financial leader in any automotive industry probably is looking at some of these parameters very closely. We actually required instant visibility of working capital and even things like real-time planning and seeing actual status of cash and liquidity. One should always keep a single source of truth for all the financial risks. I think we need a lot of transparency on financial exposures, and we think a system like SAP can help reduce unnecessary capital requirements, even to the extent of 20-25% for our customers.
I'd like to get in Mr. Bora very quickly. Mr. Sunil Bora, thank you for joining us. Sorry to keep you waiting as well. I'd just like to ask you about whether you feel that investments in digital transformation, customer experience were a key focus area for you over the last 2 years and became a key part of your financial planning as well to ensure growth and resilience at the same time.
No, absolutely, Parikshit. You are 100% right, because these areas of customer delight and also the functional transformation has always been top of our radar. It is not only 2 years; we have been consistently sort of investing in these areas. And yes, in last couple of years, we have accentuated our investment in these aspects. We have also taken a lot of actions, as my colleagues have mentioned, maybe Mr. Jagdeep or Mr. Srinivasan, Mr. Andreas also. So all these actions are very, very valid, I think, even for us also. So we are working in the same ecosystem. So these initiatives have, I would say, across the board for every organization, they are very important. How do we sort of balance our initiatives, investments, and keep focusing medium to long-term growth also? Because at times you normally tend to get short-sighted as to what initiatives you take, because there's a pandemic, nobody knows how to pan out. It's once in a 100-year kind of scenario. A lot of things are that are on top of our mind, but we always try and balance as a finance leader as to how do we make sure that organization does not get its thought funneled only on the impact because of pandemic. Because yes, pandemic has taught us many lessons, and I think everybody has done newer things to make sure that they stay fit. I think it's equally important to see that how do we make sure that the growth momentum which organization has built remains intact. How do we consistently and continuously invest in our growth capex? How do we consistently see that whatever long-term vision, long-term plans we have set out don't get impacted by this pandemic? So we have consistently been active in not only investing in areas of transformation or in areas of customer delight or in terms of automation. We have also been very, very focused in seeing that we consistently invest in all other areas, as Mr. Jagdeep also sort of mentioned.
Right.
And also Mr. Srinivasan, but also see that the growth projects which you have taken sort of goes unhindered.
Right. Mr. Anders, let me get you in back in. Do you think when we speak about financial functions and financial agility, how mature do you think the automotive industry in India is when it comes to financial agility? Do we have end-to-end real-time visibility? And what efforts are you making to increase financial agility of your organization?
I think this preparedness for this change and agility, I think that is something that we need to work with our people much more with, because it is the speed of the change is coming much quicker, and the need also and accessibility with digitalization is that people want to have information quicker. It needs to be more accurate in a shorter period. The traditional way of waiting a month and see what happened, that I think will be gone. Now it will be selected financial information to selected parts of the company where it makes sense. And I think one big challenge is actually what kind of communication and what kind of financial information and where what kind of measurement should we have in this new, if I say new economy? We should not exaggerate the new economy, even though we hear a lot about electrical vehicles, fuel, and everything like that. Still, it's quite a traditional business, even though it's changing. But with the digitalization and also all the other tools that people have in their phones and everything like that, the expectation is that we be much quicker and actually come with the accurate financial information at the right time. I think that is one challenge and something that at least I work with in my team. So that is one point.
Right. No, thank you so much for telling us about that. But Mr. Chandramohan, if I can get you in and to ask you especially about the compliance-related challenges that the automotive industry faces, how do you think data-driven initiatives and cloud-based services can help you overcome some of those compliance-related challenges?
Okay, let me begin with as mundane as it's not mundane; it's important in terms of completion of accounts and audit, which became a big challenge in this current financial year, in the last financial year. So what we did was, we had to. A lot of people were working actually on SAP from the house, and so we had to put tremendous amount of controls and checks and balance to ensure that they're all working seamlessly, perfectly well. But at the same time, we had to connect with auditors, and they were not willing to come to the office at all. And therefore, we have to feed all the information to them online. So therefore, we had to create a microsite, push all the information digitally to them. We have also subsidiaries outside the country. So, to ensure that this was done was a real big challenge. And this was the first time we attempted. I'm sure several companies would have been able to do this. But we were able to do this within a period of, I would say, by May, we were able to complete it. So that was a mindset change, which also made us to think that it is possible to work digitally as far as you ensure that controls are put in properly. Similarly, we have roughly, I would say, close to 50 acts to be complied with in various operations. So what we did was, we completely connected all the plants across online and ensured, because we have to give a report to the board that all the acts have been complied with. So we ensured that all the reports were basically obtained on a digital mode, ensuring that all these acts, whether it is pollution control, whether it is product fund, whether it is whichever act, so all those were really complied with online. So that was another interesting exercise which we attempted. So I would say in this pandemic, it has really taught us as to how to improve the compliance in the digital mode and ensure governance, and that was an interesting experience.
Right. No, thank you so much. Yes, of course, things were very difficult for the entire automotive industry, and we can completely imagine the same thing must be for the financial departments of all these companies as well. Mr. Srinivasan, if I can get you in right now, tell us about some of the key priorities that emerged for you over the last 2 years. Yes, we've spoken about supply chain challenges, technology related challenges, especially the move towards electric vehicles. But if you had to outline 3 priorities that emerged for you during the pandemic and because of all the technology related disruptions over the last 2 years, what would that be?
This motivating and retaining talent was a great priority, because earlier, when we were all working side by side, face to face, it was much easier to get a temperature of the team, how they are faring, and take the pulse and so on. And when we are working remotely and are not face to face, while the work gets done, but often you tend to risk losing the pulse or the intangibles of the team, how they are faring, etc. And especially when you are spread over multiple locations and you are not able to travel to the respective places to meet the people, I think that has been very key priority for us. It's not just finance function. I think it's also for the larger organization. I think our HR function has done a great job by way of launching the various initiatives, leveraging the online platform to keep the employees connected in terms of virtual birthday celebrations, putting in place digital reward and recognition programs, even organizing various cultural interactions and showcasing their talents in a digital format and competitions, and not just the employees but also their family members and so on. So I think that really got a very good response, because when you're working from home, your family needs to feel that they are part of what you're doing, right? And giving them an opportunity to showcase those talents of the children and the family members, I think was received very well.
Right.
So that, I think, managing those intangible aspect was a key priority. And on the business side, of course, you want to make sure that the investments you made are paying off properly, because there is a certain limitation in terms of how much cash or liquidity you have to invest, and you have to first make sure that the investments are utilized optimally. So that's where a lot of initiatives in terms of Industry 4.0, IoT, to get better
Right.
visibility on machine utilization, productivity. Those things are kicked off, or they got on kind of an more of urgency to roll out those initiatives and get them going. I think that's the second priority, I would say. And also preparing for the longer term in terms of uh, analyzing the product portfolio, making sure that your product portfolio strategy is attuned to the longer term trends in terms of your
Right.
exposure to the different product segment, emerging product segments, and so on,
Okay.
so that one can continue to be successful in the marketplace.
Manish, how are you seeing the compliance process changing for an automotive company?
I think this is a very important and good that you brought this topic. I think the automotive companies are adopting a lot of new business models, and whether at the same time they have to continue with their traditional business processes. In case of new business models, companies may need new partners to be onboarded. They could be startups, they could be large organizations, it could be niche technologies companies. Additionally, we are seeing a lot of digital content in the automotive industry increasing quite exponentially. We obviously have seen pandemic and how remote working has also become a common practice. I think in all these scenarios, it is critical to have a very efficient compliance process, which is real time and significantly agile. I think we at SAP look at these things for our customers in probably three areas. One, in terms of how do we adhere to 100% compliance. Two is in terms of the capability that the system needs to have in identifying, predicting, and even eliminating potential frauds. And finally, enabling processes with streamlined and automated controls for governance, risk, and compliance processes.
Mr. Oberoi, to get you in right now, and again coming to the point of financial agility, tell us how important is digital adoption in today's day and age for an automotive company, an auto components company, to ensure the financial agility of an organization like yours, to make sure that you are financially fit, financially healthy.
Yeah, thanks. I think so. How important is digitization? I think it's a situation where either you do or you die. I think there is no option there, right? So, considering the fact that we are competing and we are up with the best in the industry, and the competitors as well as the other allied automotive ancillary suppliers have been very, very robust in it. I think for anybody and everybody, I think the first choice is to immediately move towards digitalization. I think digitalization, as far as I'm concerned, for us, really for the new age CFO to become a tech champion and a change agent, I think that's where I think we will be required to chip in, and I think in terms of the advantages that we can look at, so really for a CFO to become a digital leader, right, a digital CFO, I think you will have to have kind of 5 components really inbuilt into you, actually engraved into you, so that you can help in understanding the business. One is the strategic leadership, which is, I think, very important for us to act as a very good helping hand to the CEOs and to the rest of the organization, rather than only living with the mundane data, which obviously is outdated. So this would actually involve helping them in looking at product life cycles, looking at new product developments, capex for technology, as well as diversification issues. I think getting into the in-depth of all this with the operating team, looking at productivity improvement, focus on the key markets as well as the key segments, looking at the penetration levels which can be done. I think importantly, risk management, other than only financial, looking at the whole organization, we look at the enterprise risk management, where we look at identifying the key risks, and helping them and mitigate them and continuously kind of monitoring them, looking at government incentives and subsidies and product cost management. Really, in terms of the one bit of strategic leadership, I think the second would be data-driven value creation, which is very important.
Yeah.
So I'm actually stepping into the fact that it's imperative, and what do we actually get out of it, right? What do we get out of doing a digitalization? So data-driven value creation, I think, is the key word for CFOs. In terms of, I think this can be accomplished by really giving real-time information. I think this is something which can really help us in taking very, very quick decisions and obviously taking corrective actions. Obviously we can use BIs and dashboards and host of other things that are available, that can help in the whole situation. And syncing various data, I think there was a time when we used to give data. I think now there is a time where we create subjectivity, objectivity from subjectivity, right? Bringing about a lot of information together and trying to give some insights which can basically add value. And then, of course, most importantly, robust cost information. So that is the second bit on data value creation. I think third is the digital labor, where we can chip in. I think this is, of course, all about robotics, the artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, and algorithms. I think algorithms primarily for repetitive processes, and adding quality in AI and IoT is really for, even now on machines, we've already implemented on a few of our casting machines, where we are getting direct feed into our SAP, which is really helping us to minimize labor and also giving very good quality data for us to analyze and see what is the layoff time, what is the redundancy. And I think cross-functional collaboration, and least but not very less important, is cybersecurity. I think that's how I think digitization has become an absolute imperative for us, and to get these advantages, there is no other way we can do it. I think that's point number one. I think, can you repeat your second question? I'm sorry, I'm just missing that.
Yeah, about efforts that you're making towards financial agility by use of digital technologies.
So I think in terms of financial agility, the way I look at it is that, we should be able to adopt to the given situation and, quickly be flexible enough to, be able to react in a positive manner, right? So I'm saying an agility for an organization is to be able to cope up with the environment, no matter how uncertain the environment is. And for that, I think there are 2-3 stages that one would look at. One is, of course, survival, where you are trying to put across everything, let's say put together everything and understand that, what is it that we have today, and realistically speaking, how do we make it the best, in terms of being able to, really making it work the best way it is possible. I think the second stage would be stabilizing the whole thing. I think stabilizing as in looking at multi options of plans where you can chip in, let's say a lot of various parameters, and look at sensitivities and see where would be worst case scenario and the best case scenario would be, and then try to create situation where how would you react to it. And in terms of that, we should actually we normally tie up with other organizations that in terms of let's say in terms of there is a pandemic or if there is a slowdown, how do we react to the situation, where do we get the money, how do we leverage it. I think, and then last and not the least, I think, is the long-term returns and reinvestment, which is the future. I think so. Basically, it's transformational mindset. Start looking at things in a different way. Improve business practices. Focus on where the funds have been investing, how quickly we can get them out. Importantly, looking at production measures to improve production. And I think it's basically the idea of adoption to challenge, and overcoming the idea. I think that's how really I would look at agility. I think, and the team should be, I think, up to it. I think that's my thoughts.
Okay, now let me put the final question to Mr. Bora. Now we're coming towards the end of our discussion. Mr. Bora, from a financial outlay point of view, how are you maintaining the balance of investments to build future business models versus sustaining the current model and operation?
But what we do in terms of medium-term growth also, we have sort of split our management reviews, our discussions in a way that we don't actually have any overlap between the current business versus what is growth. So we make sure that we have a strategy discussion for the medium to long-term growth is little different than when you review your operations. Because when you review your operations, the thought process is very clear. You look for the results, you look for delivery, you look for customer delight, you make sure that whatever projects you have taken, they get delivered and they get the returns as you have expected. Whereas when you look of the future growth, your thought process is a little different, because there you are thinking about medium to long-term growth of the organization, what products you can add, what value you can add, what kind of investments you need to make into R&D. So when we do our budgeting exercise, we also make sure that we use all these digitization tools to make sure that you prioritize very structurally in terms of how your KPIs are measured for your operations, how your KPIs are also measured for your growth. And same way, we also see the fund allocation exercise, what we do at the beginning of the year, sort of does not do any shortcuts to the growth. Yes, immediate operations are very, very important, but we also make sure that whatever funding, whatever support, whatever bandwidth needs to be provided, we provide that for our growth business as well.
Right, gentlemen, we've come to the end of our discussion. It's been great talking to you all to understand your perspectives about the importance of digital transformation, digital technologies in making an automotive company financially agile, financially healthy, and also contributing towards increasing its revenues in this disruptive period. Thank you once again for joining us. After an interesting conversation with CFOs on the emerging trends and changing landscape of the automotive industry, let's have another insightful conversation with CIOs focusing on how technology is offering a competitive advantage to the auto industry. After standing through the challenges thrown by the pandemic, businesses are now focusing on building resilience and creating competitive differentiation in the market. CIOs across industries are shifting gears to lead change efforts both internally and externally to catalyze the growth. Technology tops the list when it comes to driving business innovation and increasing competitive differentiation. Digitization and technology advancement takes the lead in the automotive industry as well in reimagining success in coming years. The change for the business and technology leaders is to strategically bring digital at the forefront and create a leading edge amongst peer players. Let me introduce our guests today. We are joined by Sandeep Pradhan, CIO of Exide Industries, Kishore Hirani, CIO, Amara Raja, Sharad Agarwal, Chief Digital and Information Officer, JK Tire and Industries Limited, Mr. Parna Ghosh, Vice President and CIO, Una Minda. We're also joined by Manish Prasad, Vice President, Metal, Mining, Miscellaneous and Automotive at SAP India Private Limited. Let me kickstart this discussion straight away about the key trends which are impacting the automotive industry and how the auto sector is likely to change over the next 5 to 10 years. Let me begin with Parna Ghosh. Mr. Ghosh, what are the key trends that you are seeing over the last few years that are changing the automotive industry and how companies like you function?
If you look at the auto industry as a whole, see, one thing we can easily understand is the change in the customer choice, or the customer, what they used to expect 10 years back or 5 years back, and now what they're expecting is completely, changed in the last few years, especially with the advent of the case, which we call it as connected autonomous, shared and electric mobility. With the advent of case, people's expectation and the customers expectation and customers the experience have completely changed. And during this pandemic, what happened is, since everyone was at home, people were doing a lot of research, and you have already seen that the market has suddenly took up a huge change in the uptake of the vehicles. Again, suddenly the second wave came, and things were slightly in a different shape at this point. But the point what I'm trying to say is the customer experience and the customer choice has changed, and it revolves and evolves around technology. And when I say technology, it means digital experience, it means mobile based services, it means touchless experience. It also is using a lot of IoT, or I will say the connected ecosystem, in terms of the complete ecosystem in terms of whether we are connecting to the government, we are connecting to the transporter, we are connecting to the insurance. So the entire ecosystem is completely getting disrupted. And when the customer experience gets changed or the expectation gets changed, automatically the companies who are the OEMs or the suppliers or the tier ones, everybody has to change, because customer drives the entire product or technology ecosystem in every product and service. So
Right.
hence the complete I will say the ecosystem is revolving around artificial intelligence, IoT, machine learning, and in future I will say blockchain will be one of the biggest disruptor in the entire automotive industry, which is going to come up in a few years from now.
Let me go across to Sharad Agarwal now. And Mr. Agarwal, I'd like to ask you how different market segments and the different players in the automotive industry are being impacted over the last 2 years, and what are the future challenges and opportunities that you see for your business, and how OEMs can benefit from the disruptions that are taking place right now, especially disruptions related to electric vehicles.
So electric vehicles, before that, let me talk about all of us, be it automotive industry or any other industry, have to be very conscious about the sustainability part. And the electric vehicle, I would say, is a fallout of that sustainability desire of the humankind.
Hmm.
So electric vehicles, if I talk about from terms of technology, terms of how we will have these electrical vehicles running on the road, how do we have the charging infrastructure? Those are all parts of conundrum that have to be resolved. But apart from that, for people like us who are automotive, means we are tire suppliers. So for even tires, because electrical vehicles, they are the demand of the tires is different. The tires are taller, they need more torque, they need to be silent while moving, but shall have a certain bit of sound when you are at low speed. So these are newer technological challenges that are coming to any automotive industry. And yes, from a different segment perspective, what everybody is looking at from an interaction perspective, the end game has to be simplicity. The interaction shall lead to simplicity. And importantly, about from a computation perspective, though cloud is the hygiene factor today, yes, but we are working towards distributed platforms. Parnaji also pointed about blockchain. Then we will shall be moving towards the quantum computing, leading to abundance of computation at affordable cost. And
Hmm.
yes, data and analytics is the main, I would say, the enabler, which would start with data lakes and artificial intelligence, and we will reach a point of exponential intelligence, and it will become so embedded that it will be sort of omniscient technology present everywhere. So all these sectors, irrespective whether it's a directly B2B or B2C sector, is going to be impacted.
So, Manish, what is the shift in trends that SAP is seeing in the automotive industry?
We are seeing a lot of emerging trends in the automotive sector, whether it is the connected and autonomous cars, shared mobility, electric vehicles, the impact of sustainability in the overall product lifecycle development, or be it in the area of remote working. We are seeing a lot of technology being infused within the vehicles. We are also seeing a paradigm shift in the way the sales models currently are, where we are moving from a dealer distributor network into more of OEM to consumer connects. We are seeing a lot of embracement of 5G in the factories, which is probably bringing in more and more of Industry 4.0 concepts, and the idea of embracing modular manufacturing. I think the overall impact in the segment is quite vibrant, and one has to look at more not only from a process standpoint, but I think a lot of infusion of technology needs to come in to kind of manage the current shifts in the automotive segment. But at the same time, make sure that the current operating models are also sustained till such time the new operating models probably take up and be the new norm in near future.
Mr. Sandeep Pradhan now, CIO of Exide Industries. Mr. Pradhan, tell us about the top three digital technologies that will help drive value to the automotive industry, and how is Exide Industry using technology, kind of digital innovations that you bring in into your business?
To me, the top three digital technologies that will help to derive the value in the auto industry. The number one, the connected digital supply chain. If you see, Now the organization are not competing with their competitors. Rather, we can say the supply chain of organization A is competing with the supply chain of organization B and others. The connected supply chain has a vital role to satisfy the value conscious customers' wants. The organizational success depends on the superior design, planning, and execution of their supply chain. The data-driven alignment of supply and demand, data-driven asset strategies, and the connected cars and the connected factories, the remote diagnostics, the proactive customer service, and the real-time supply chain visibility. This will reduce the supply chain cost and ensure the better customer service. With the help of the supply chain twin, it will become the easy to understand the supply chain behavior and the predict the abnormal situations and the workout and action plan. Second one is the electrified and autonomous vehicle. The car of the future is electrified and the connected autonomous. New business model could expand the automotive revenue pools. Third one is the mobility as a service. The mobility services tuning the business model into a profit. The core mobility profitability relies on the uptime and the efficiency of the vehicles. So to maximize the both, the service providers should pool their fleets into a centralized platform. Additionally, they can optimize the fleet utilization by using the cutting edge technology like artificial intelligence, machine learning, blockchain, and so on. During the COVID-19, various service providers that diversified their offering to increase the fleet uptime and thus started on-demand urban transport as an alternative business model. These are the top three the digital technology that will help to derive the value in the auto industry.
All right. Now, let me get in a perspective from Amara Raja as well. Mr. Kishore Hirani, CIO Amara Raja, is with us. Mr. Hirani, when we talk about the auto and the ancillary industry, especially, how are companies like yours likely to benefit from digital transformation when it comes to improving productivity and improving revenues as well?
See, we see our digital journey as three journeys in terms of three ways. One is what we have coined a project called IDEA, which is DE represent digital enterprise, where we take care of all the business applications like the ERPs, the CRM, the vendor portals, employee portals. Here we completed a large HANA project where we implemented 15 plus modules of SAP HANA, including several new age modules like transportation management, extended warehouse management, export import, production scheduling, vendor invoice management, GRC, and master data management solutions. As part of this, we also implemented the SaaS-based HR suite called PeopleStrong, which covers the entire HR journey, employee journey, from recruitment, onboarding, learning, payroll, leave and attendance to final due clearance. Second aspect of digital journey we see is as digital manufacturing, where we take all the shop floor automation applications. While we already have the SCADA and the historians, we are now setting up the IoT platforms so that we can take the data and feed it directly to the operator tablets and the analytics around it. We are also leveraging digital twin so that we can optimize the machine parameters, and what we call is building a golden batch so that the quality can be controlled. Third is journey we see is as digital in our products and services. This is where we take projects for the products that we make and the services that we provide. Like we take up smart battery solutions, battery installation monitoring solutions, and digitizing the entire warranty management process.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hirani, for those points. Let me now get in Parna Ghosh once again. And this is something that I'd like to ask the Uno Minda group as well. Now, the Western European automobile market will need about 10 years to reach the size of 2019 again. That's what Professor Ferdinand, director of Germany's Center for Automotive Research, has said. Even in India, if we look at the CAGR of the last 10 years, there is a consistent degrowth in the auto industry across segments as well. Now, from your perspective, Mr. Ghosh, when do you think the automotive industry will actually return to the growth path, considering there has been a slowdown in CAGR over the last 10 years now?
Yeah, this is a very, very, pertinent question at this point of time, and especially for auto industry. Look at the way, since you are also monitoring the industry very well, very closely from, a media point of view, you can see that 2018 around October there was a slowdown which started. I'm talking about 2018 October around that time. Then we had the COVID, then we had the second wave, then now there is a microprocessor shortage, then again there is a coal shortage, and things are going on. So which we used to call as VUCA world, now actually we
mm,
are observing it very, very closely, and this is
mm,
real VUCA. It's
mm,
nothing artificial or something like that. Now the
mm,
point is, when this I will say this complete industry as a whole will bounce back to the original state, and in between a lot of OEMs also left this country, which really is very unfortunate. In fact, looking at the customer base and the looking at the other ecosystem is concerned. So the point which I am trying to highlight here is, these disruptions are now going to be permanent. It is not that something outstanding, something is going to happen and there will be a miracle in the entire ecosystem.
yeah.
And one more important thing is, all predictions by all the analysts have actually failed. So we have to be slightly careful when we do some predictions. But as far as our estimation or something is concerned,
Mm,
2023 we feel that it will bounce back to the same level of 2019,
yeah.
including the electric vehicle penetration. And
Mm,
then obviously, since the shared mobility market has also at the optimum level or at the matured state at this point, I don't believe
mm,
that is going to expand a lot.
mm,
Maybe tier 2, tier 3 cities slightly, it might grow it into certain percentages,
mm,
but the main scope of growth will be rural, obviously, backed up by
mm,
electric vehicles, obviously penetration in the cities and the urban areas. And then third will be the connected cars slowly penetrating in the Indian market. And
mm,
because these are the things where the scope of increase is there. And the last but not the least is the scrappage policy, which, if
mm,
it is really implemented in I will say in real terms, then
mm,
you will really see a very, very big growth in the commercial vehicles, in
mm.
the passenger cars, or also in the two-wheeler segment. So I think if you
Right.
look at all these disruptors and all these situations, so I think this disruption is still going to continue, but there is a chance of revival around 2023, mid of 2023, if everything settles down very well, and then no further big disruptions comes up in the way.
Also, recently the scrappage policy was announced. It is estimated to cover 51 lakh light motor vehicles that are above 20 years of age, and another 34 lakh vehicles above 15 years of age. What role does a technology company like SAP have in this process? How are you working with your customers in this regard?
Well, I think this is a very exciting space, and we are in discussions with a lot of customers, both from a scrappage as well as from a used car pre-owned vehicle business, as one would call. Both these businesses have processes related to buying of old vehicles, and it needs a lot of details and documentation to go along with that. The objective here is that how do you digitize the entire process, irrespective of whether vehicle is being completely scrapped or they are being used as a resale. The important point here is to develop and track with a digital thread from the time a vehicle was bought to the time where the vehicle is getting scrapped or it is being used for some other purposes, including taking out the steel of the vehicle or getting the vehicle refurbished. And the way it is getting sold to the customers in the pre-owned segment. It becomes even more important as the scrappage and unused car businesses are not being directly driven by the OEM, but they probably may have a franchisee model. Having said that, I think the CRS system plays a very significant role here for attracting the sellers of old vehicles, and at the same time, for the used cars, the CRM system will be important to attract the potential buyers for this segment as well.
Now, let's also discuss the China factor, and I'll get in a view from our panelists now. Sandeep Pradhan, if I can begin with you. Uh, Today, the global automotive production, especially when it comes to components such as electronic control units, uh, chip manufacturing. Now, we are greatly dependent on China. Now, when you're looking at these supply chain shortages of ECUs, shortages of critical components, which are made in China, even including graphics, for example, how can India benefit from these disruptions? How are we positioned in terms of taking advantage of the global disruptions that are taking place in the supply chain?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks again. It's a great question and relevant. Yes, India will definitely benefit from the volatile market in the China markets with respect to the supply chain disruption. With the production-linked incentive scheme and the various initiatives taken by the government of India to improve the contribution of the automotive sector towards the GDP. Few of the initiatives like Automotive Mission Plan 2025 and the voluntary vehicle scrappage policy. The government of India encourages the foreign investment in the automobile sector and also allowed the 100% foreign direct investment under the automatic route. In India, due to the growing demand, like the rise income in the middle class and the young population, and the second on the various opportunities like shared and micro mobility and shifting to the electrical vehicle, and third on the policy support like the automotive mission plan, the national logistics policy, and the so a lot many more. The overseas auto component manufacturers are likely to set up their shop in India and engage in the joint venture also. This will ultimately boost the Indian exports and will also result in saving the foreign currency. One area where our country can excel is the in the automotive, the chip manufacturing. These are the all basic. We can benefit from this volatile market in the China. Thank you.
Right. No, these are very interesting points. Let me also get in a view from Amara Raja Batteries now, Mr. Kishore Hirani. Mr. Pradhan was talking about the PLI schemes. I'd like to specifically ask you about the Advanced Chemistry Cell Manufacturing PLI scheme. The RFP for it was issued just 2 to 3 days back. Do you think this will really help India's battery manufacturers in somehow making India's EV battery manufacturing competitive? Right now, it's almost next to negligible. All our batteries are being imported. Perhaps what we're doing in India is only assembly of batteries. Even that, I'm not sure how much of that is happening currently. But how can we make sure we become competitive? And how much will the advanced chemistry cell PLI help battery manufacturers? Mr. Hirani.
I think it's a great initiative by the government. Okay, while there is still discussion about chemistry of batteries in terms of LFP versus NMC and all that, but I think it's a great initiative, and this should certainly boost manufacturing. Of course, it depends on the demand that shows up. Why, with major auto majors trying to commit to EV manufacturing and stopping the ICE vehicles, I'm sure it will pick up. Demand will pick up, and accordingly, the PLI scheme kicks in. The EV manufacturing picks up the country. So it's like a cash situation. While the EV manufacturing has to go up, similarly, the production of EV batteries has to increase in the country. And I think it will go a long way. It is not only about the chip shortage with China, with the PLI scheme also in the electronics manufacturing sector. It will help reduce imports both on the auto side as well as the other electronic components like laptops, desktops, and mobiles and other things.
Thank you so much for giving us that perspective. So, all in all, you're saying the PLI schemes will benefit different sectors, be it EV batteries, be it auto components, cars, or mobile phones for that matter. Let me get in Mr. Sharad Agarwal once again. Mr. Agarwal, last 2 years were pandemic years. How did this, in a way, redefine your role as the CIO of the company? How has your role changed? And today's day and age, what kind of role does a CIO play in automotive industry?
To be specific means the role not just for any CIO in automotive industry, but otherwise in any industry, be it any manufacturing industry, retail. So it has gone through a complete evolution. I would use the word evolution because, and what happened means there has been a very popular joke going on: who propelled your digital transformation? So multiple reasons, but the top choice is COVID. So means it's trying to take the best. People say that never let a good crisis go waste. So we, all of us, let this opportunity, grab this opportunity with both the hands, and were able to provide solutions that could otherwise would have taken years. We were able to provide those solutions within months, and they were relevant solutions. They were solutions which were bringing value to the organization. Means for if we talk of April of 20 last year, so all of the country was closed. Our digital payments, I would say, were just a fraction, but because nobody had any other option, we the platform which was available, all our business partners and we ourselves, we used it 100%. So the digital payments then became a habit, and everybody is now continuing with the digital payments. This is just one example. Now coming to how the role has evolved. So means it used to be a support function, then it became an enabler. Now this role has become a driver. So just to take a leaf out of JK Tire, we used to be IT function, but now we rebranded this as digital and IT solutions provider.
Right.
So which means we are not just a support mechanism or an enabler. We are trying to bring thoughts from best of the industry. Now our competition is not with our peers in the tire industry, but from the best practices that are available.
Yeah.
Just to give you an example, we have a very marquee product available now in the market, which is called digital claim settlement, in which if there is, God forbid, there is any issue with the tire, with a manufacturing defect, you take it to a dealer, and within 5 to 10 minutes, the tire gets replaced, which earlier used to take days. Now the turnaround time is minutes. So this is a game changer for JK tires. So similarly, there are multiple examples that I can keep on putting. But yes, it has made. There was another question I was discussing in another forum. Now the CIOs have now got a seat in the boardroom as a board member. So that's the change that I have seen in the last 2 years. Thank you.
Right. That's an interesting thing. CIOs are a part of boards. They are a part of boardrooms, and it's become a crucial role during the pandemic. Of course, a lot of firefighting as well, production disruptions. You're dealing with people also who are falling sick, deaths in families, lots to take care about. So, of course, the burden is increasing in that sense. But Mr. Parna Ghosh, if I can get you in, what we also saw in the automotive industry and the component manufacturers, of course, tier one, but then tier two and tier three manufacturers are also badly hurt when there is no clarity on production, how it's going to happen. Earlier, you may have had a visibility of 3 months to 6 months, but now, considering the COVID situation, and I hope the worst is over, but over the last 2 years, you really couldn't predict much. If there were lockdowns going on in different parts of the country, especially Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Uttarakhand, or Gujarat, you really couldn't predict how much you will be able to produce, how much you will be able to send to other states or even export. So, how did that impact your role in the last 2 years, and what became your primary responsibility during this period?
I still remember when we were forced for the national lockdown on 24th March last year, if I remember it very well, by Prime Minister Modi. Obviously, there was an announcement, and then everything went into a kind of complete shutdown. The digital collaboration tool which we are using today across all geographies were only used by 1 or 2% of the people in the entire organization, around 4,000 people. Now, in just next 48 hours, I still remember 26th of March, without any single amount of training, the entire 4,000 employees started onboarding on the tools, and they were able to use it. And today, still I'm sitting in the office and everyone is joining the meetings. We have increased the bandwidth of our network bandwidth almost two and a half times in all the offices. I mean, this is a change. So coming back to your question about your supply chain, or specifically manufacturing, as you know, auto was closed till, I will say, mid of May, the first unlock was started, and then last year, obviously, and then second, third, fourth. So I think auto was given a kind of a leeway in terms of, because this industry was struggling for a very long time, and the entire ACMA, SIAM, and all the other bodies, they approached the ministries, and obviously they allowed auto on the first scenarios. The biggest problem which happened with our people were most of the workforce, or I will say the casual or the temporary workforce, actually went back to their homes. If you still remember the famous, the walking kind of thing, what happened, I mean, I forgot the terminology exactly, but so that actually the famous walking actually really disrupted the industry very badly, especially in Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, as you rightly pointed out. We were short of manpower, we were short of the skilled resources. But what happened is, as Uno Minda Group, we provided a lot of incentives, additional incentives, staying facilities, health facilities. We had a COVID care center for the group itself in all these cities. So I think through all these measures, we were able to bounce back in 15 to 20 days, almost 3 weeks time. And the entire supply chain where we are getting materials from, say, for an example, tier 2s, tier 3s, and tier 4s, were able to bounce back because of the policies. And the last but not the least, since the cash flow was a very, very important issue, or I will say important or a very difficult issue to handle at that point of time. So we were we ensured that employees and suppliers are paid on time. I think this was the biggest, I will say, game changer in the entire ecosystem. When you hold your supply chain payments and something like that, the entire supply chain actually gets blocked. So when you start, pumping funds into your supply chain, the supply chain gets, start getting healthier, and then obviously the benefit, became very much visible. And you see, from May onwards, end of May onwards, I think we completely bounced back, and we were almost 80-90% of the production schedules, and we were able to supply to the OEMs as well.
No, no, that's great to know, and of course, desperate times call for desperate measures, and I think the automotive industry responded very strongly to the challenges at that time. There were demands from the government also to assist in pandemic recovery. There were demands from its own employees and OEMs as well to supply as much as possible. But Mr. Sharad Agarwal, if I can bring you in right now. Now, just to speak about the scale of manufacturing, logistics, and distribution units, it's of course quite huge. What role would digital technologies play in optimizing resource management and enhancing asset utilization of the industry?
Uh, that's a very apt direction that industry is trying to utilize digital technologies to increase the productivity, to increase the throughput, to have cost controls. And this is all being led by multiple factors, starting with IoT, which lets you catch data at a sensor level. Then you can make use of advanced analytics to see where uh, to reach upon the idea of a golden batch, to see where you are floundering within the entire shop floor chain. And so more and more of these newest technologies, including machine learning and AI, are helping. So we also at JK have taken upon a tech-enabled manufacturing, I would say, leap further, wherein multiple factors to increase the productivity, to have reduced defects, to have a better control over the quality. So all those are being pumped in. But if in general, if I try to answer it from an industry perspective, if we look, say, 20 years back, so versus the KPIs that looking at the same KPI, the KPI would have improved by 50% in last 20 years. But now is the time to improve them by another 50% in next 2 years. So that's the quantum jump that every industry is trying to take. And it's not just a dream, it's a reality possible made by homologous synchronization of human efforts
Right,
aided by machine learning and artificial intelligence. Thank you.
right. Manish, in the last couple of years, we have seen an increased momentum from SAP towards the cloud platform. How does this shift impact customer approach to technology they adopt?
Look, first of all, cloud is a big enabler today. It's no longer a technology subject. I think it's a business subject simply because it brings a lot of elasticity. It brings a lot of agility in terms of defining the technology operating model that can sustain as well as grow new business models that our automotive companies are looking at today. We have seen a great response from our customers to the focus that we have laid on our cloud platforms. This essentially gives our customers great agility, improved TCO, as well as lays the foundation to embed functional innovation at scale for their organizations. However, while in the short term, there's always an urge to explore new and low-cost solutions, but from a mid to long-term perspective, it makes a lot of strategic sense to invest in high-end platforms rather than picking up solutions in silos. I think this is where the overall cloud story of SAP has become very relevant, simply because while we have a digital core which kind of takes care of all the horizontal processes, we are also investing a lot in terms of our public cloud solutions, be it in the area of supply chain, be it the area of managing human talent or the changing landscape of human talent, as well as building specific industry solutions that probably goes and becomes a plug and play to the overall operating environment of any auto company.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Let me get in Mr. Kishore Hirani also now. Mr. Hirani, when you're looking at disrupted supply chains since the past year and a half, what kind of technological investments did you make in order to meet spikes in demand? What happened was that nobody really expected that demand recovery would be so strong in the automotive industry, and that also created supply shortages. But what kind of investments are you making in technology to ensure that you can meet consumer demand over the next 6 months to a year?
As I mentioned, what we did was, first is as soon as we recovered from the pandemic, in terms once the lockdown ended, we continued manufacturing at full speed. Okay, so whatever employees we could get in the labor workforce, we manufactured at full speed because we were expecting some pent-up demand to start once the lockdown ends and the traffic resumes. So that helped us significantly. Okay, and we were able to supply when the demand picked up. In terms of investments in technology, as I said about the SAP investments that we did both on the operations side as well as the supply chain side. Putting in advanced transport management solutions from SAP, putting in extended warehouse management solutions, scanning solutions, QR code implementation, including operations planning and scheduling, helped us, in terms of building the productivity and ensuring that the supply chains are not disrupted.
And Mr. Prasad, SAP has a massive footprint in the Indian automotive industry. How are SAP customers adopting digital solutions and meeting the current challenges?
As I said, this is probably one of the most exciting and even challenging times for the industry today. I think before we get into these solutions, let us dwell a little bit in terms of what are the typical challenges. And I'm going to talk about the entire auto value chain. I'm not going to limit only to the OEMs, but let's look at the OEMs. Let's look at the auto component manufacturers, even the tire and battery companies. I think there's a sharp change in the trends, which demands a balance between the traditional operating model as well as the new models that are emerging from a business standpoint. At the same time, though we know the pandemic is probably becoming a little more controllable, there's still a lot of supply chain challenges like the availability of raw materials, and we have seen what's happening in the industry from a chip manufacturing standpoint, and even the people part of supply chain is getting seriously disrupted, and hence there's a lot of resiliency which is required from a supply chain standpoint. The third piece that we are realizing is the new customer engagement models, where we are, as I said, we are moving more and more to direct to customer kind of a mindset, which requires a single unified profile of our customers across the enterprise and emerging, and the emergence of analytics and data based on the usage and the way the vehicles are being currently consumed by our consumers. And I think that's where digital plays a very, very significant role. And finally, if you look at from a shop floor standpoint, I think they are getting transformed quite significantly with a lot of increased automation and the entire concept of Industry 4.0. I think there's a lot of increased usage of guided vehicles, machine-to-machine integration, warehouse automation, and these are all these systems need to be seamlessly integrated to the underlying core technology platforms. And I think that probably poses a significant challenge, not only in terms of managing the current portfolio, but also in terms of creating an architecture which is modular enough and still has the elasticity to be able to incorporate new business models infused with technology. I think if I kind of bring all these pieces together and look at the SAP solutions, I'll probably bucket them across four key segments. One is obviously the SAP S4 HANA, which takes care of all the horizontal processes and the systems, and there's a lot of intelligence that we are bringing in along with that, and there's a lot of cognitive play also to make sure that there's no deviation to the process, and most of the automation comes in and the necessary intelligence embedded with that. The second piece, as I talked about, is in terms of our industry cloud solutions. Finally, our business networks, which probably connects the suppliers and the suppliers in a more integrated and a collaborative way. And finally, the business technology platforms, because we realize that every business is unique in some form and shape. And if our customers need to develop something, that's where our BTP platform starts playing a very significant role to make sure that they can create those differentiation, which is very unique to their business.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that guidance as well. And let's also discuss the importance of AI, machine learning, and big data to manage inventory and deliver goods. And let me put this question to Parna Ghosh now. What role, Mr. Ghosh, can AI or machine learning help build a framework for regulatory compliance to enable manufacturers adhere to government industry standards?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult question. So, I mean, see, AI and machine learning, these are the coupled with obviously IoT, as Sharad mentioned very rightly. These three technologies are actually, I will say, is in a phase of maturing over a period of time for last few years. It's not that it has been invented today. The only thing which is happening is earlier that the quantum of data was very less, and now the biggest change which happened is the data is available where you can do the analytics on your systems. Now, looking at the regulation and other things, look at the way GST has completely transformed themselves. Now, when I say GST, now you can't evade tax. Point number one, which can be easily caught by artificial intelligence or mining the data properly with your suppliers, with your customers, with yourself, and what kind of buying and selling you have. So anybody can do a machine learning and find out what is a taxability you have to the government. This is point number one. Point number two is from an industry point of view, since you are connected in an ecosystem, and as I was mentioning in a previous statement, that blockchain is going to come up in future. So when blockchain will be implemented in auto sector, and like currently if you see, the banking is one of the biggest consumer of blockchain technology. But when it comes to auto, then the synchronization from government to customer to OEM to supplier to I don't know how many tiers, it will completely cover the entire ecosystem. And since blockchain talks about single source of truth, you won't be able to evade anything at that point of time, barring where government is giving you certain benefits, like examples, small time manufacturers or dealers who are anyway not in the net of tax. So regulatory compliance point of view, whether it is direct tax or indirect tax, or say for example customs or other areas, the kind of digitization government is initiating through Digital India initiatives, I think this is going to be a huge change in next few years, you will see. And I believe the way the matured countries like US or the European Union countries, the way they manage their the I will say the governance in terms of revenues. So I think our government will also be having this the the control or the arrangement or the management of the regulatory structure in that way. I think this is a big game changer, and I believe the government is following the right path in this direction.
Mr. Prasad, we are in an era of continuous innovation. What are the efforts that SAP is making to partner the automotive industry in driving that innovation?
Look, I think this is a very important topic, and we probably discuss with our customers on a day-to-day basis. I think SAP is working with almost all customers in the country today to one, enable best practices, look at the new generation practices, and even the vertical edge processes that are so fundamental to the success of both the current business models and the new business models which are emerging. At the same time, we need to drive a lot of differentiation and align the requirements of new operating models in areas like mobility, IoT, advanced analytics, data connectivity. I think these are some of the specific areas where SAP is collaborating with the OEMs, with the component manufacturers, tire companies, the organizations which are manufacturing batteries, and looking at various ways and means of creating a modular, nimble, platforms that can get loosely coupled to their existing operating environment, but brings in the necessary agility that is required in the current operating model. It also requires, every organization actually has set up their own innovation councils, and SAP plays a very significant role in probably making sure that all the startup communities, niche technology players are also integrated to the broader SAP vision, so that the scalability and the speed with which new technology infusions can happen in their business is quite significant.
Mr. Sandeep Pradhan, just to get your view on this as well, tell us how important is AI, machine learning, and big data for a business like yours, and also to meet compliance and regulatory standards.
The AI and the machine learning and the big data can help the various use cases, like in the dynamic inventory norms, the reduce the forecasting errors, and reduction in the lost sales, the safety stocks, and the scenario planning for various supply side unpredictability. That we call it the what if planning. Also, the inventory management is changing radically with the help of the AI, like the data mining turning into a solutions, dealing with the forecasting, planning and control issues in the inventory management, and also the stock management and delivery, the AI powered robots to optimize the warehouse operations and also the route optimizations. One of the largest, the online retailer in China, the JD.com actually successfully utilized the autonomous robot vehicles that would deliver the food and the medicine to solve the last mile issues. It also recently the Tesco has opened the checkout free store where the people can shop without having to scan the product, and no queues and no barriers to enter. Here, AI driven app is helping to customer for the checkout free shopping. And also AI has enjoyed some success in the finance industry, particularly
Right.
in the area of the risks and compliance. The
Yeah.
financial institution responding to the massive data volumes and the
Hmm.
regulatory requirements also have turned
Hmm.
into the AI and using it to assess the segment of data sets and tune their analytics. AI is basically effective in areas that involve the volume number of documents and the repetitive processes, mainly the automatic, the legal and compliance and the risk documentations.
Thank you, Mr. Pradhan. Mr. Hirani, my final question to you. Uh, from a battery manufacturer's perspective, what we are seeing right now with the disruption in use of fuels, disruption in electric vehicle technology, we're talking about hydrogen fuel cell. Even the government is going to incentivize manufacturing of advanced automotive technologies, including electric vehicles and hydrogen fuel cell vehicles more. So, keeping all of that in mind and considering where we are going, where Europe is heading, where China is heading, where the world is heading towards electric vehicles and hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, uh, what do you think the future has in store for a company like Amara Raja Batteries? Of course, a lot has to be there has to be a lot of focus on future. You have to be careful about your investments, but it is a difficult area to predict as well. Uh, Tell us, as a CIO, how do you see the industry navigating through these unpredictable challenges related to technology?
As Sharad mentioned, it's truly a VUCA world, and you don't know what is going to happen tomorrow. There are so many trends changing every day, every evening, kind of
No.
thing.
And just to
In
interrupt, Mr. Hirani, the thing is, we can think about a number of technologies. Today, we're researching on aluminium ion, we're discussing hydrogen fuel cell, we're discussing solar, electric vehicles. But at the end of the day, we don't even know what will eventually work with the consumer.
Exactly. So in terms of take the example of EVs, now that's a huge opportunity for the battery manufacturer like us. I mean, the amount of batteries that go into a EV is huge. So in terms of that's a great opportunity. And not only that, in terms of one is the electric vehicle, but second is the electronics that goes with it. I mean, if you take an EV, even if you take a two-wheeler EV, okay, the electronics, the entire dashboard is electronic, the battery management system, the GPS connection to it. So there are a lot of other components in the EV which are consuming batteries, and that's a great opportunity. Now, as you said, in terms of which battery chemistry succeeds, and a lot of things are under discussion. But in terms of yes, now again, thanks to investments from government, okay, using the PLI schemes, and also in terms of announcement of hydrogen as alternate fuels or other battery chemistries, we need to see what happens. And we have seen that in terms of how we have seen the success of Ola two-wheeler launch, electric two-wheeler launch. We've also seen big announcements from Reliance in terms of investments in terms of hydrogen as a fuel. So yeah, we need to see how the industry evolves and what the technologies succeed.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Hirani. I'd like to thank all our panelists here, Sandeep Pradhan, Kishore Hirani, Sharad Agarwal, Mr. Parna Ghosh, and Manish Prasad of SAP, giving us a sense of how the role of a CIO has changed today amid all the changes that we're seeing in technology and pandemic related disruptions as well. Of course, this is a very exciting, but at the same time, a very unpredictable period for the Indian automotive industry. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us, and to all our viewers as well. Goodbye, and thanks for watching.